Hello again everyone, this is Fiona. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm just coming on because I'm going to be starting a new video series, and it's going to be called the Junk Journal Project. So I'm going to be using the hashtag. It's a hashtag, the Junk Journal Project. So whenever I post in this series, I'll use that hashtag, and I'll use it on YouTube and Instagram and wherever I post, so that you can follow along. And why I'm calling it that is I'm going to be making a new junk journal for myself, and it's going to be a project, as in every video I will either journal in my journal, art journal or junk journal, or I will be making an insert, or you know, some sort of pockets or envelopes or any sort of embellishments to add to my journal. So you know, I'll just be giving you different ideas of what you can do with your journal in the series. So this is called my project junk journal, and I'm going to be making it out of an old book. And this one it's just a little bit bigger than A4 size. Well, it's actually 9 inches high by 6 inches wide. So, and it's going to be a no-sew spine. So there's no sewing in of the signatures. We're just going to be using some eyelets in the spine and tying the signatures in. And I've seen a couple of people do this. I think Johanna Clough, she has a tutorial on how she does hers. And the other one is 49 Dragonflies on YouTube. She also has a tutorial, so I'll link those channels below. But I'm going to go through this with you. So, and I'm not using the original spine of the book. I want my spine to be a little bit wider, so I'll be making my own spine. And the other thing is that when you do choose a book that you want to use, we're going to be removing the pages. So it's a good idea to make sure that the book has, the pages are not actually glued to the spine. So you've got a gap here. Because we're going to be cutting the pages out, and so we need that to be not glued there, so it'll be easy for the pages to come out. So anyway, I think that's enough talking about my project. So let's get on and make this junk journal. Okay, so to start off with, I'm just removing the pages. So I just cut down the sides there of the spine, and the pages come out really easily. Then I'm just removing the front and back cover. Just making sure that they're even, the same size. And then I've got an old piece of cardboard here. There was a backing from some packaging that I had. So I'm just cutting that down to the height of the book for my spine. And then the width of my spine I made 2 inches wide. So I cut that down, and then I found that the spine piece was a little bit thinner than the actual book front and back cover. So I cut another piece and I glued the two together just to make it a bit more sturdy, the same as the book. And I'm just using a normal PVA glue to glue these together. So now I'm going to attach the spine to the covers, and I'm using some packaging tape or just some masking tape. You might have some book binding tape or any sort of tape that doesn't have a shiny surface. This one has a matte surface, so that whatever you put over the top is going to stick to that. And make sure you leave a gap between your spine and your cover, roughly, you know, a couple of millimeters, or about a 1/16 of an inch. Just leave a little gap, otherwise your book won't open and close properly. So I'm just making sure it's opening and closing there. I like to add the tape first, and then I'm deciding what to add over the top of that. I thought about some wallpaper, but then I changed my mind and used some fabric, because I always think that fabric makes the spine so much stronger, because it takes a lot of wear and tear, and sometimes you find that paper might rip or crack, so I like to use some fabric. So I'm just ripping it down to size. It's just making it a little bit wider than the spine. And it doesn't really matter what fabric you use here, because if you just use an old piece, you can cover it up anyway, because it's just going to be on the spine piece, and most of your pages are going to be covering it. On the inside it'll be, you know, mostly covered, because we'll cover our inside covers as well. And if you want to cover it on the outside with something, you can do that as well. So I'm just wrapping it completely around the book. And again, just using some PVA glue. And now I'm just deciding what I want on my cover. I'm going to add that little fairy picture there, just because I love fairies. And I'm going to cover the outside of the front and back covers with this wallpaper. At first I wasn't sure how it was going to stick, but it ended up sticking down really well. It was just a little bit hard to work with, because it was a huge roll of vintage wallpaper that I found in a second-hand shop, and because it came on a roll, it was quite all curled up, so I found it a little bit of a struggle, but I thought it was worth it in the end, because it looked quite nice on the cover. So I'm just cutting it down to the size of the one for the front and one for the back, and I'll just be placing it sort of a little bit away from the spine, so you can still see a little bit of the brown fabric there. And then gluing these other 3 edges around onto the inside, which you'll see in a minute. And don't worry too much about how the edges are cut, the edges that you're folding over to the inside, because they're going to be covered up with some more paper. But just make sure that the edge that you've got on the outside near the spine is straight. So I'm just cutting that piece down so it's a bit straighter. Adding my glue again. And that little fairy image that you saw, that's out of a little book that I've got on fairies and angels. And it's filled with all beautiful paintings and illustrations of angels or fairies. And that one I really, really like. It's done by a French artist. So here I'm just cutting the corners on an angle before I glue them down. And as you can see, my edges aren't straight, and I'm not worried about that because that's going to be covered up. So yeah, that little fairy painting is by an artist called Sophie Anderson, and she was born in 1823 in Paris, France, and she died in 1903. But I've seen that painting a few times and I really love it. It's got quite a long name actually for a painting. It's called Thus Your Fairies Made of Most Beautiful Things. So that's the name of the painting. So yeah, now I've finished covering the outside covers. Now I've cut down some scrapbooking paper for the 2 inside covers and just cut them slightly smaller than the size of the covers, and just taking them almost to the fold line in the spine, but not all the way to the line. And then I had some leftover pieces from that piece of paper, so I cut them down to make pockets for the front and back inside covers. Just glue the 3 sides down. And now I was thinking of adding some ribbon to the edge there just to finish it off, but then I decided against that. So now I'm going to add my little fairy image on the front, cutting her out. And in a minute it actually goes blank here, right here. So I apologise for that. It's just that I didn't realise that I had actually bumped my camera at the time. But all that I'm doing at the moment is putting glue onto the back of my fairy. Oh, there we are, we're back. So I just put some glue on there and I glued her down. And then I end up putting the ribbon around her just to give her a bit of a frame. Yeah, and so for this journal, I'm going to be using up scraps mostly. My pages will be mostly just junk, book pages and things like that. I won't be using any digital kits until I actually come to embellishing it. Okay, so this is my cover mostly finished for now. I just need to allow it to dry before I do any more on it. So this is a little bit crinkly, but I'm not too worried about that. If I was making this for someone else, I'd be taking a bit more care, but this doesn't really bother me. As it dries, it will flatten out. So I've just painted over the top of it with a bit more glue. It's like a Mod Podge type of glue. So it's going to give it a nice coating there. But yeah, so we've added, if you were watching, we repurposed an old book. And then I made my own spine with a couple of bits of cardboard. And then I covered that, or joined that with a little bit of tape, and then some fabric over the top there. And then I've covered my front covers with some wallpaper, and the inside covers are just some pattern designer paper that I had in my stash. And yeah, so that's what I've done so far. So the next video will be actually choosing papers and putting in the signatures. And as I said, it'll be there won't be any sewing in this one. So yeah, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.